Hello and welcome to another video discussion. And in this video, we'll talk about alternative energy sources. Alternative energy refers to energy sources other than fossil fuels such as coal, petroleum, and diesel, and includes all renewable and nuclear energy sources. The major advantage of alternative energy technology is that it won't run out. Our days using fossil fuels are numbered, and so any and all alternative energy sources are beneficial over traditional sources. Another huge advantage is that many of them do not require the same damaging and expensive extraction techniques, as much of it is available to us here on the surface. If you have been thinking of lowering your reliance on fossil fuels and are wondering how to get started, then we can look into this lesson. One of the main reasons we use alternative sources of energy is to reduce our carbon footprint. As of 2020, the production and consumption of renewable energy have reached record highs. As biofuels, geothermal energy, solar energy, and wind energy continue to increase, so does the use of renewable energy. Local governments and citizens can access renewable energy. From a local government perspective, renewable energy can help meet local goals while leading by example. Renewable energy can provide economic and environmental benefits, including producing energy that releases no greenhouse gas emissions, reducing dependence on imported fuels, and supporting economic development. There are different forms of alternative energy, some well known while others are relatively unheard of, and here are some of them. Solar technologies convert sunlight into electrical energy either through photovoltaic panels or through mirrors that concentrate solar radiation. This energy can be used to generate electricity or be stored in batteries or thermal storage. So in PV, when the sun shines onto a solar panel, energy from the sunlight is absorbed by the PV cells in the panel. This energy creates electrical charges that move in response to an internal electrical field in the cell, causing electricity to flow. On the other hand, concentrating solar thermal power systems use mirrors to reflect and concentrate sunlight onto receivers that collect solar energy and convert it to heat, which can then be used to produce electricity or stored for later use. It is used primarily in very large power plants. The solar energy market in Philippines is expected to grow at 13.4% during forecast period of 2020 to 2025. The solar power sector is still in its early stage here in our country, and while the country is going through some policy changes, the solar market in the country is expected to garner more support from the government in the coming years. Factors such as rapid economic development and growing population are expected to drive the market during the forecast period. Another alternative energy source is the wind. This is one of the cleanest and most accessible sources of energy. Wind power is sustainable and does not release carbon emissions as a byproduct. It's also entirely renewable, as there will always be wind. Energy sources such as fossil fuels often fluctuate in price. So a typical wind farm repays its carbon footprint in around 6 months or even less, which provides decades of zero emission energy that displaces fossil fuel energy. According to the National Renewable Energy Plan, the Philippines has set the goal of adopting an additional 1,548 megawatts of renewable energy by 2030. A breakdown of this reveals that wind power is expected to account for the greatest share of this at 38%, that is about 593 megawatts. The Philippines has significant wind energy resources spread across various islands of the country. As of 2019, the Philippines has installed onshore wind capacity of 426.9 megawatts. Next on the list, we have the geothermal energy. This is the heat within the earth. The word geothermal comes from the Greek words geo, meaning earth, and therme, meaning heat. Geothermal energy is a renewable energy source because heat is continuously produced inside the earth. People use geothermal heat for bathing, to heat buildings, and to generate electricity. The slow decay of radioactive particles in the earth's core a process that happens in all rocks, produces geothermal energy. The Philippines is one of the world's top producers of geothermal power as it is located along the Ring of Fire zone of the Pacific volcanoes. Now, however, in 2018, the country dropped in the global rankings for geothermal countries, just behind Indonesia. This prompted the Philippines to consider revamping its geothermal development again. In June 2018, the country launched a new string of exploration surveys, which is an addition to roughly 10 contracts with power companies on geothermal exploration. That is according to Think Geoenergy. Now, the Philippines currently has 7 geothermal fields which supply about 12% of the nation's energy, with a long-term plan to nearly double capacity by 2040. The Macban Geothermal Complex in Batangas province produces 458 megawatts output capacity. The Tiwi Geothermal Complex with a net capacity of 289 megawatts in the province of Albay, and Maltibog Geothermal Power Station in Leyte Islands with 232.5 megawatts capacity in Leyte province. Tidal energy. This method of energy production is still fairly new and has only produced a small amount of energy so far. So it will be a long time before we see real results from tidal energy. So tidal energy is a renewable energy powered by the natural rise and fall of ocean tides and currents. Some of these technologies include turbines and paddles. Tidal power, on the other hand, is already currently located in a number of countries including South Korea, United Kingdom, France, Russia, China, and the Netherlands. The San Bernardino Ocean Power Project is a transformative initiative carried out by H&WB, a Filipino project developer, and Sabelia, a French technology developer, to develop the Philippines and the ASEAN's first commercial power plant deploying tidal in-stream turbines. And the first phase sees a 3 megawatts pilot farm of Kapul Island in San Bernardino Strait by 2021. So featuring Sabelia's field-proven tidal turbine and onshore storage batteries. The goal is to provide a reliable supply of clean power to the off-grid area and replace the obsolete, costly, and polluting diesel generators of the island. But as of my latest reading, there are no further development aside from the prospect. Nuclear energy. This is the energy in the nucleus or core of an atom. Atoms are tiny units that make up all the matter in the universe, and energy is what holds the nucleus together. Now, there is a huge amount of energy in an atom's dense nucleus. In fact, the power that holds the nucleus together is officially called the strong force. A nuclear reactor or a power plant is a series of machines that can control nuclear fission to produce electricity. So the fuel that nuclear reactors use to produce nuclear fission is pellets of the element uranium. Now, in a nuclear reactor, atoms of uranium are forced to break apart. As they split, the atoms release tiny particles called fission products. And fission products cause other uranium atoms to split, starting a chain reaction. And the energy released from this chain reaction creates now whether or not nuclear energy should be considered renewable is a constant debate. Although nuclear energy is not as bad for the environment as fossil fuels, it still isn't classified as renewable energy source because nuclear material cannot be replenished within a human's lifetime. Nuclear energy is produced by using elements like uranium and thorium, which cannot be replenished and have a finite amount of existence. The Philippines is the first ASEAN member state to build a nuclear power plant. In response to the oil crisis in 1973, the Philippines decided to build the Bataan Nuclear Power Plant. The Bataan Nuclear Power Plant sits on a 389-hectare protected land at Napot Point, a peninsula in the west coast of Morong, Bataan at the Luzon Island. Had the plant been operational, its 623 megawatt electrical capacity could have provided at least 10% of the present power requirements for the Luzon grid. It took almost 8 years to construct, but then it has been on preservation mode since 1986 at a cost of 40 to 50 million pesos a year for the maintenance. Besides the mentioned energy sources listed above, other alternative energy sources include hydrogen gas, wave energy, hydroelectric energy, solar thermal energy, and even space solar energy. Alternative fuels are often described as green or renewable energy, but this isn't always the case. Alternative energy is a broader category that encompasses all non fossil fuel based energy sources and processes, of which renewable energies are only a part. But what are the pros and cons of alternative energy? This can depend on the specific source of energy, of which there are many. For example, biomass comes from the burning of organic matter, which is an efficient use of waste. However, this process requires large landfill spaces and may result in pollution due to the burning of this matter. The pros of wind energy are that it is sustainable. Wind turbines are relatively harmless to surrounding wildlife and are inexpensive to build and maintain. Solar power has similar pros and cons to wind energy. The sun will always shine, just in varying amounts on each day. The pros of solar power are there's an unlimited supply of sunlight. However, it relies entirely on sunlight. So panels only produce energy when the sun is shining. This renders solar panels fairly useless on overcast days during the night or if a building has a west facing roof. Each individual source of energy has its own set of pros and cons, as well as variables that should be taken into account, such as location, climate, financial benefits, and most importantly, the overall reduction of damage done to the environment.